You know what I just did was I just counted the weeks to college football. 13 weeks. I believe that's the total. I didn't grab a calendar and actually count it off. I just, in my head, 13 weeks to college football. 13 weeks until the time in which we can enjoy the games. We can enjoy the reason we're here talking college football 24/7, 365 is for those precious 12 games plus from September, late October, or late August, September into January. Finally, coming. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. As we like to say here, we break down the game we all love each and every day with you. This is the best in discussion, debate, and analysis, not because of my contribution, my knowledge, my insight, my perspective, although at times it's pretty darn good. Not always. But based on your participation, your engagement, we are the voice of college football here. Reminds me of something I saw on Twitter this week where they basically alluded, they didn't come out and say it, they alluded to people giving themselves nicknames, which, hey, it's a free country for now. It's a free country. Go ahead and give yourself a nickname. But they were alluding to me. I could tell, of course, since their tweet was directed right at the voice of college football, right at me, Mark. Yeah, I didn't give myself the nickname. I will surely take it. And it wasn't given to me by one person or three or five. It was dozens of you. So we finally took it on. And again, the universality of it is that we are all the voice of college football. You've got a voice. I've got a voice. Our contributors who appear on our various channels and shows, they have a voice. We together are the voice of college football. All right. And our voice in about 13 weeks will be about football. If I wanted to talk legal issues, grant of rights, and national labor relations boards, and if I wanted to talk NIL, and if I wanted to deal with all sorts of other issues, collectives, shoot, I'd have a political channel. But that would drive me completely insane as well. But we appreciate you being here. And if you want to call about college football, go ahead and call. We have left the link there out on Twitter. Among the many millions of followers that we have on Twitter, we left the link for them. So if you follow us on Twitter, you can grab it there. You can grab it also in the chat as well. We've left the link there. Please join the show. All right, let's get right down to it. And you know what? I left my laptop somewhere else. So we will need the laptop to, you know what? No, we won't. Because we will show all of you and read along together this issue with the National Labor Relations Board taking on the NCAA, which I don't know that a lot of people are typically in the camp of the NCAA, but we might just be this time. The Pac-12 and USC, and we will all try to understand this together. And again, thank you for being here. And if you'd like to call me about college football and save us from this awful legal discussion, please do. Call me about something. Call me about my program rankings. We released the first part of the series, ranking the programs, not necessarily the teams of 2023. So get that straight. Not the 2023 teams, but the programs as they stand right now. And we released version number 1, part number 1. Give it a look, 133 up to number 100. But most of you seem to want to talk about realignment every day. I don't understand that. So if you want to talk about realignment when it matters, if you want to talk about realignment when there's news like there was this week with the grant of rights and with the ACC 7, we will do it up as well or better than anyone here, based on my perspective, based on our number of resources and contributors. We will do it up here better than anyone, especially with the resources we have. Okay. So if there is legitimate reason to talk about realignment, keep it right here at the Voice of College Football. Yeah, I'm not going to be like those knuckleheads that talk about it every day. All right, we're going to talk football here most of the time. All right, but today we're talking legal matters. Let me pull up this story and we will look through this together. Reminds me of a quote out there that I love, but I won't recite it. Together. Yes, together. Let's get right to it. According to the fine folks at ESPN, let's all read along. Dan Murphy, ESPN staff writer. National Labor Relations Board files complaint for unfair labor practices versus the NCAA, the Pac-12, and USC, which leads me to a number of questions already. I have looked through this article already, but we'll read together and try not to bore all of you to tears. I will try to shorten it as I go through it. A legal battle that would open the door for some college athletes, to form unions took an unexpected, yet significant, let's get the glasses, step forward Thursday when the National Labor Relations Board issued a complaint against the NCAA, the Pac-12, USA. Those three parties will argue against lawyers from the NLRB in a hearing scheduled for November 7th. The hearing is the next step in one of several mounting challenges to the NCAA's fundamental belief that college athletes are not employees and thus should not be paid directly for their athletic performance. We could stop right there because I've got much to say about basically where we are headed versus where we are and where we should be and where we've been and what collegiate athletics are all about. But this is completely out of control. The conduct of USC, the Pac-12, the NCAA as joint employers deprives their players of their statutory right to organize and to join together to improve their working and playing conditions if they wish to do so, said the general counsel. Our aim is to ensure that these players, as workers like any other, can fully and freely exercise their rights. If athletes... This complaint applies only to football, men's basketball, and women's basketball players. There's an issue there. Are viewed as employees under the National Labor Relations Act. They would have the ability to organize and collectively bargain against schools for a larger share of the billions of dollars of revenue. Okay, the NCAA has been firm in its stance that college athletes should not be employees of their schools. The NCAA and I are on the same page. Whether that's practical in this setting, just like this 12-team playoff and a number of ramifications from that, whether realignment is good for the sport and expansion and dissolution of certain conferences, that's the reality and the truth. Several leaders from the association, conference, and schools have lobbied Congress in recent months to create a federal law that defines college athletes as non-employees. You know what? I have often been one of those people, as many of you have, that have said, doesn't Congress have something better to do? And they do. The country's a mess right now, so they have better things to do. But you know what? Based on Congress's effectiveness in dealing with important issues, you know what? Let's let them tackle this. I have completely flipped on that stance because I would have said and have said many times, Congress has more important issues to deal with. They need to be dealing with, wow, don't get me started. You all know the issues in this country. They need to be dealing with those things. You know what, though? It might be better. It might be better the less they deal with and continue to fail to legislate other things. You know what? Let them work on this. The NCAA believes making athletes into employees could lead to a system where athletes could be fired I would hope so. If they're going to be employees, they could be fired. They could be laid off. There could be particular teams that say, particular schools / teams that say, you're not fired based on performance. You're making too much money. Bye. You're laid off. We are laying you off. How about that? Create complications for international athletes as well as Title IX compliance. Farce. According to the organization's senior VP of External Affairs, Tim Buckley, said in a statement Thursday, the NCAA believes its rules need to be updated, but that employee status was not the right solution. And it's not where we should be, and it's not the right solution. But with everything else concerning the sport heading where it is, and it's already arrived, it is a solution. It is a solution. The complaint issued by the region today appears to be driven by a political agenda. It's the wrong way to help student athletes succeed, Buckley said. The association believes student athletes, school leaders, and the people's representatives in Congress are best fit to make such wide-ranging changes to college sports. All right, the Pac-12 said the National Labor Relations Board allegations are completely at odds with decades of established law, and more importantly, if accepted by the NLRB and the courts, would have a profound and negative impact on college sports. Yes, this all has a negative impact on college sports. It just does. However, if collegiate sports are going to operate a certain way, then these athletes have certain rights. So follow me here. This is all negative. This is all headed in a negative direction. However, if it's going to stay, and it will, and get even worse in that negative direction, meaning a business, then we have to afford certain rights. And it has to be structured differently. Not in a good way, but that's the necessity of it. If the administrative law judge who oversees November's hearings finds that the NCAA, the Pac-12, and USC have violated labor practices, the decision would almost certainly lead to an appeal that would require the board to decide if football and basketball players qualify as employees. Remember, Northwestern sought the right to form a union in 2015. Complaint was filed in February 2022, 15 months ago. The complaint is disappointing, but neither new nor surprising, USC said in a statement. NCPA founder Ramoji Huma said Thursday that they believe this process will prove athletes are entitled to all the rights and protections of employees in America. FBS football players and NCAA Division I men's and women's basketball players. Seriously? Should I really read the next statement? The majority of whom are black. So we read a couple paragraphs earlier that this had political agenda. I guess that's what they're talking about right there. Mr. Huma? Let me tell you something. It shouldn't freaking matter if they're green, purple, Chinese, or otherwise. White. Doesn't matter. You moron. I need to get these people on this show. If you've got any connections to Mr. Huma, Ramoji Huma, just, it's difficult for me to continue with this garbage. They are exploited physically and economically by NCAA sports. Huma said in a statement, one of the reasons this injustice continues to plague all athletes, first of all, that statement's not even true, in these sports nationwide is because NCAA sports has denied them rights under labor law. Okay, I've read enough garbage. All right. This really just is too much, isn't it? Just becomes too much. Just too much. Where do we start on all this? This is where we start. First of all, as our friend Tony Syracuse of Last Word on College Football, and if you want to hear a great depiction, explanation, and framework given to the grant of rights and the ACC 7 and their attempts against the grant of rights, check out our live stream from the other night with Tony and others, but with Tony in particular. Oh my goodness. So, wow. Okay, here we go. Because Tony reminded me before we came on today that the National Labor Relations Board oversees private institutions. Why? I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head. Obviously, public institutions fall under the states. I get it from a functional standpoint. I get it from a legal standpoint. It doesn't make common sense, though, because they're all performing the same job function. They're all doing the same thing. So the law should, and there should be the same jurisdiction over all the athletes, not just private school athletes, public school athletes. So I get it as to why. I know the functionality of the structure, but that doesn't make sense. Number one. All right. If they're filing a complaint of unfair labor practices against the NCAA, fine, because the NCAA is obviously a national organization, but against the Pac-12 and against USC, what? This is not about a particular policy that only exists in that conference or at that school or a particular incident that occurred. This happens everywhere. Why are these morons filing a complaint just simply against the Pac-12 and against USC? I understand they can't. I know there's reason, a practical reason, but again, going back to the concept here, every conference in America should have this complaint filed against it, and every private school. And truth be known, every school that employs athletes. So we've already found two things wrong with this. We will find more. So let's all understand that this is just not in a good direction right now. Alex, we'll get to you in just a second. My next complaint, and I have so many, would be why just football players, men's and women's basketball players? And I understand the response is going to be those are revenue generating sports. Don't businesses lose money? Is that the definition of a business, that they make money? Well, then a large percentage of businesses in this country would not be businesses then, right? If your business loses money, does it cease to be a business? Therefore, why is it just men's and women's basketball players and football players? It should be every athlete. Don't get that. That makes no sense. And then this whole race comment is pathetic and just pathetic. It's just, there's no justification for that statement. If it was made in any other way, it would be termed a racist statement. All right, we'll bring on Alex here because, yeah, this is just pissing me off the more we talk about it. How you
I
doing
can't
today?
believe it. I cannot believe it. I was just gonna listen for a bit, but when you read that part of the statement, I was like, no way, dude. No. And as you were just mentioning, like if we really push this, then you wipe out intercollegiate athletics as we know it. It's finished. Everybody's an employee now. It's over. So, and to what I just mentioned, I I wouldn't have thought that a labor disagreement would blow up the NCAA, but you know, like, hey, if they're gonna go for it, go for it. like I and you know and since this is now somewhat political, like let's look at college football and regionally, geographically, the powers that be. You're talking SEC, Big Ten, do like and you can think about woke agenda, whatever, but man, you go after college football, you're gonna turn some, you're not you're gonna anger the wrong types of folks. So uh I I think this is a small little thing, really. It'll just be brushed aside, labor relations or what have you. But um the yeah, yeah, but that comment, I was like, okay, is that what this is? If that's what it is, then you're good. Then yeah, you're gonna cause a lot of problems for a lot of folks. Yeah, just man, the off
I
season is a
know.
blast, huh? Jeez.
If we had honest people and people that really wanted these athletes and wanted the best interest of the student athletes, the fans, the alumni, everyone involved, everyone can benefit from all of this. The fans and the alumni can get their entertainment. The student athletes can be compensated, and the schools and universities can make a ton of money.
Hmm.
If we had a workable and honest NIL system, and the students would continue to be student athletes. And if they majored in sports, that's fine.
Hmm.
They would need to, just like if you major in biology, you have to take the rest of your coursework. So they could major in a sport, but they would still have to become well-rounded, educated people and continue to stay eligible based on their grades. This is my pie in the sky approach to it. And then on the side, NIL, they can make sky's the limit. They're Americans, great.
Hmm.
But they
And
need to stay as student athletes.
yeah, this is where because it since my alma mater, we have the ivory tower mentality, right? But what do what is the purpose of intercollegiate? Because that's what that's what the NCAA purpose is: intercollegiate athletics. If they're employees and that breaks apart, then it's over. Then there's then again there's no component to being the student anymore. It's just the athlete and their comp as the athlete. So then what are we doing here? You could just have somebody come on campus and just you know, out like let's play with eligibility. People can just hang around 4 or 5 years being an athlete, then they just go do the next thing, right?
Former NFL players that were cut by their teams could come back to school and say, hey, yeah, I can't get picked up by any NFL team at this
Hmm.
point. I'm 31 years old, but I want to keep playing. I'm available.
Yeah, and recently we've had now we have a few other minor leagues that we kind of didn't have XFL, USFL, whatever. And college football was always a farm system for Sundays, right? That's how it was always somewhat understood. So now now there's additional economic complexities we're talking, that are happening. But yeah, uh it's it's very difficult to imagine what the sport is if you really take that route with what uh this labor. component would be. It's as you said, like anybody can now just work for a university and play some football, and then what's the purpose of that? Because it uh the constraints that college football has, that's what makes it unique. Everybody gets on campus, you have some eligibility, they go to classes, and then so even though, again, like to look at it as a farm system for the NFL, that's not necessarily like that does rub some folks the wrong way, but at least there's an entrance and an exit. Now now what is it? If now we don't know what it is, if it's just a bunch of guys working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That just have the Cal logo on the helmets and the colors, and just in a very fictitious way represent the university. They don't truly represent the university as part of the university, as being ingrained students at the university. They just play for a football team that continues to carry that name.
Yeah, and like at least with pro sports, you have the like they play, it's by municipality or region, what have you, but there's uh like that, like creating the fan bases or what have you in pro sports, like like we know how to bifurcate that. Now it becomes a mess of, well, now it's a university. What it it's bewildering what this all would seem to be if that's what this turns into. But again, it would. I mean, we're talking about nothing burger here, but it's just like mind blowing. What, like somebody say a professional amateur athletics, like that phrase makes no sense. This whole thing makes no sense. I mean, come on. We want to we want like what, and to what you were saying earlier, you have a pie in the sky idea, but what do we want this all to be? And I don't mean just college football, like college, NFL, like whatever, because like, and this is where I now think basketball may have gone ahead of this in a way that now makes it pretty clear. Like for high school basketball players, you can play in college for a year or go G League, or you can play overseas, but there's a structure there with but if college football now becomes this employment relationship, now it's very young, now it's unclear, like what, like where's, man.
Yeah, it's almost like when you played for a local softball team that was sponsored by an insurance company and you wore their jersey, Smith's Insurance, to the softball field a couple times a week, and you represented them. You had no idea maybe where they were located or who worked there, or if it was a good company or a horrible company, but hey, they ponied up $1,000 for your softball team. So you put the shirt on and you played softball and had no connection to that company.
Mm-hmm.
You could just start to say, the Spartans sponsored by Michigan State.
Exactly. We're going to have college jerseys with ads on them. Yeah, that's actually a very funny way to look at that. We got the Tennessee Vols sponsored by, I don't know, Waffle House.
Well, I was thinking of it more from the standpoint of there's this football team and they are sponsored by the University of Tennessee. They're no longer Tennessee, the Vols, because those players aren't ingrained in student life, but they put the uniform on, formerly known as the Tennessee Volunteers, but simply now sponsored by. And that was my correlation or analogy with the softball team that people play
actually,
for.
well, no, that does make sense to kind of what I was thinking of. Is that it's no longer a university team. The university is just sponsoring a team, so it's no longer really your team.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very uncomfortable thought. Well,
no. And then it becomes just a low grade NFL. It becomes minor league baseball, because then you rip away the, there's the high level of play, but it's nowhere close to the NFL. So now it just becomes there's that attachment that
Yeah,
to the school is gone.
or like I look at, hey, like because you can walk into a classroom and see the student there and say, hey, I went to school or class with this guy, he did this, and then he went pro and he did whatever.
Yep.
Now it's like that, if they're like, if that component's gone, then they're just showing up working for the team that my university sponsors. The relationship isn't there, and the passion's not there, right?
Yes.
Mm.
The best distinction I ever heard outlined a couple different times was by former Big Ten Commissioner Jim Delaney, who played varsity basketball at North Carolina. So he played at the very highest level. And this was around 1968 to 70.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, they were playing in the NCAA tournament and in Final Fours and on television. And it was a big deal, but it wasn't anything close to the moneymaker that it is now in the spectacle. So he lived a normal life of being a student and having a restriction on his responsibilities and his basketball time that was very reasonable. That's where I would like us to go. We're never going to go back to that, of course, but like he really painted a tremendous picture of drawing the distinction between the way things were 50 years ago and the way things are now. And there still existed the NFL and the NBA that developed, there were still just as large a portion of players that moved on to the pros, but were they as good once they hit the pros? Probably not, because they didn't devote their lives and weren't forced to be laborers for that university, and they were student athletes. That's where I would love us to go back to that point, but that's long been gone.
Yeah, or even because like we've had this happen at Cali, where you could have a student gets a preferred walk on, so he's not a 5-star stud with NIL deals. He just walks on, goes to class, gets his degree, works his way up, and then one day, hey, he's starting for the Ravens, right? So when guys are now just competing for jobs, it's well, yeah, and that's the question. Like, how does it even work now? You come out of high school and then you have to sign an employment contract. Come on, it's wild where this goes.
The athletes that will probably be most hurt will be those athletes that have a grand illusion of playing at the next level, but they don't have a realistic shot at it, but they're certainly good enough to play at a big time school. And now going forward, there's no encouragement or no system for them to gain an education. I'm sure it's going to be available to them, but a lot of the support to kind of encourage them to go to class, encourage them to study, have, study groups and all that to ensure their education maybe vanishes, and they're simply just showing up to play football. And if they're not encouraged, being 20 years old, they're going to be to their own devices of just having a good time and won't take advantage of the opportunity like most of them are still encouraged to do, because they're in the system, and they're going to get the most hurt if this continues to go in this direction.
Yeah, and to that point, like I did mention basketball, and now you have like a guy has several opportunities, but you have a lot of like 18, 19, 20-year-olds that can play pro ball like pretty quickly. Whereas, and for football, of course, it takes guys several years to develop to be at the top level. So yeah, you're right. That whole support system's gone, and then you're going to have a lot of opportunities for guys that are going to disappear. So, but I got to drop, but yeah, this this is a nothing burger that's silly, but like we think this goes nowhere, but it better not. Who knows? Yeah. Well,
yeah. Anything in society that goes in a certain direction that results in actual change, there probably were most likely forerunners to it that didn't succeed. So that's usually the case. So this could be harmless in the moment, but a precursor.
Yeah. Oh well, off-season fun. Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks for stopping by, Alex.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
There.
Have a good day. All right, we will keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. We do have a super chat. Thank you so much for that, Mark. Will the new NCAA commissioner have the talent and the ability to get something agreeable to all parties? Well, that certainly is a question. That's a question that can't be answered. We don't know who that individual is, and I don't even know if that organization has the place in intercollegiate athletics to wield that kind of authority or leadership. All right. Welcome, Will. How you doing today?
What I'm most frustrated about of all this is the people that were leading the NCAA back before this whole thing started. How out of touch and stuck in your ways were you? Like, this all could have been avoided if we would have had competent leadership in the National Collegiate Athletic Association. Like, I just don't understand what Mark Emmert was doing and the people that in his staff.
They were probably most concerned with getting sued and trying to protect themselves was what they were spending most of their time doing.
I don't like, do your job. Do your job. Like, support the student athletes. Like, they aren't, like, the student athletes are having all these voices from a bunch of different places, and they don't really know, like, and really they're like, okay, more money, then I'll do this. But they aren't, like, if the players don't have, like, coaches that support them, like, they could not, their whole life could just go down the drain like that. Like, I'm just worried about some of these student athletes that don't come from, like, strong families and coaches, because this is how people's lives get ruined. And the NCAA was more worried about not getting sued than protecting the athletes. It's just very frustrating.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
It is apparently, a situation where they are not protecting the student athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Not at all. Although it has, on the surface, like a lot of other things in society, on the surface has uh, the makings of being beneficial to the student athlete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I don't know that it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I just really wish that, I don't know, like, I'm worried about, like, these Georgia players, like, with the D lineman that got picked, like, 3 already getting in legal trouble. I shouldn't know what his name is, but, and,
Oh,
like,
Jalen Carter? Was
yeah,
that who it was?
I'm worried
Jalen
that
Carter?
I'm just worried that, like, Georgia's going the same route that went down under Urban and Florida, with all those guys getting in trouble. And I just really, and, like, the guys that went to A&M, those freshmen that got into trouble. I don't know. I just worried about these athletes, and I just really hope that there's someone there, like someone on that staff that really looks after them and checks in on them, because yeah, like, these guys can turn into, hopefully get fixed up, but they could, like, land into a situation like Maurice Claret went into before. And luckily he turned his life around, but there's a lot of those guys that aren't as good at football as he was that go down that route that people don't know about, and that sometimes they don't get back up from that struggle. So I'm just really hoping that they can avoid that situation.
Well, we know that about 75% of them from a certain ethnic group don't have a father.
Oh yeah. Oh.
So they arrive at school, not that they're not fine people, and many of them are raised by extremely great women, strong women who instill in them. So it's not everyone, of course, not even close. But that's a big disadvantage, and we've seen the ramifications of that. So now, while many of them hit the streets, if they've got athletic ability, they're thrust onto campus and they get into trouble.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's kind of just what I was bringing up. Like people like are like, oh, like these athletes are getting paid and all that, but like what's actually, but I feel like we just need to like actually look out for their well-being as well, not just like complain that they're getting paid and all that. So yeah, that's what I was kind of just wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I don't complain that they get paid.
Oh
I
yeah,
know a lot of people do. I don't like the system or lack
Yeah.
of a system. I don't like the unruliness of it. I don't like the unscrupulous, environment with unscrupulous people involved. I don't like that, but I don't in any way begrudge them of anything that they make. Shoot, there are 13-year-olds on TikTok making tons of money producing silly videos. So fine.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I just wish he was like getting paid for community service and stuff, like doing good for the community, but I can't complain too much. But yeah.
Wait a second. You want the athletes to get paid for community service?
Well, yeah, I mean
Doesn't it cease to be community service once they get paid?
well, help their community. I'll say that. Help their community. I won't call it community service then, but yeah. At least
Yeah, I don't know if I'm a big proponent of that.
Okay.
We're going to pay you to go down to the Salvation Army and hand out turkeys on Thanksgiving as a photo op.
I mean, if you put it that way, it sounds a lot worse than what I was thinking. But yeah. All right. Well, Mark. Hopefully, we can get next time. We can like talk more about football and the season coming up. But
Yeah, I would like to.
yeah.
This situation arose, and I thought, well, we will address it.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Well, thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
See you, Mark.
All right. Have a good day. All right, folks. Welcome into the Voice of College Football and our legal discussion that we're having about the National Labor Relations Board and its complaint against, again, inexplicably, the Pac-12 and USC, which don't function in any way different than other schools and conferences. That makes no sense. So we will take your comments and questions here, of course. We have left the link there in the chat. We've also left it on Twitter, where I've already seen a lot of other unsavory things going on social media. Had to get a new phone today, and it booted me out of Facebook and Twitter, and I needed to come up with my passwords because it reset everything. And I thought, this is a good thing because I can't remember my passwords. I don't know what my passwords to Facebook and Twitter are because I'm automatically signed in. So now I got booted out of those platforms on my phone and thought, that's a good thing for me for as long as I can last and not go on those social media platforms. That would be a good thing. Then on the other hand, I'm watching Gary Vaynerchuk the other day. Somebody sent me a video. A good friend of mine sent me a video. And he's letting me know and others that do what I do, content creators, that we should be on social media platforms like every day, all day, and posting on 5 different social media platforms every day. So, yeah, there's that. I would rather not, but that's kind of the business that we're in here. Texas Buckeye 1953. Super sticker. Thank you so much for your contribution there, Texas Buckeye. Appreciate you being here. And everyone else. And again, we have counted 13 weeks to the start of the season, but unfortunately, we're talking about legal matters today. So I believe we made our way before we got a few calls through this ESPN article by one Dan Murphy. And again, I believe that Alex hit it on the head, that there won't necessarily be something that comes of this particular complaint that's been filed, but I think that this is a precursor to this just becoming more and more of an issue, and it'll gain traction and it'll head in some direction. But yes, should these athletes be treated as employees and compensated as employees? I don't think they truly want that. I think that they have enough earning potential the way things have been structured now with NIL starting here a couple of years ago, that they have that earning potential already in place. I don't know that they want to be fired or to be laid off. What if they're good players and they're performing well, but their company, meaning their team, is not earning enough money? They get laid off. So that's always a possibility too. All right. John is reminding me here that we released our program rankings, at least that first edition. Check that out. Numbers 133 through 100. Have a good time doing that. Again, that's the 2023 edition. Do not confuse those with all-time program rankings. And do not confuse those with our team rankings for the 2023 season. Those are the program rankings that we released, and we will serve up the top 100 coming up here very soon. We had a conversation earlier today, and it was a very good one, with West Virginia head coach Neil Brown stopped by. So we want to thank our buddy Joey for setting us up with West Virginia head coach Neil Brown. Good discussion with him. I believe he knows he's somewhat on the hot seat after 3 losing seasons out of 4 years there in Morgantown, coming off a 5-7 finish. And they open the season at Penn State in Happy Valley as a substantial underdog. I believe the number is 17. We talked about win totals last week as well, and what Vegas is serving up as win totals. And some of those have caught my eye and typically do. We hit on 6 of 8 at this time last year. So you'll want to listen up for our over-under selections, our win total projections, as we typically do okay at that. I am not the win total projection guy that Steve Dace is, who's made a formula out of it and a masterpiece in determining those. I just kind of spitball them, but still 6 out of 8, not too shabby. Texas Buckeye 1953. Mark, last night's deep dive was great. Thank you so much for that. So what the deep dive is we have Tony Altamar, our consultant strategist, who unveils his deep dive of metrics and statistics and charts and graphs and trends involving academics and culture and athletics and football, of course, at all the various schools. We delivered Michigan and USC and Florida State. We felt as though Florida State, of course, being front and center of this initiative with the grant of rights in the ACC 7, they got together this week and talked about more legal situations to delve through and deal with. That's another one right there. So that's pretty much what's become commonplace for us. But we know what that is, that the ACC 7 has gotten together, and we have devoted a lot of time to that situation, which that's going to be years and years and years in the making. That's going to take a lot of time to break down that legal contract, that binding agreement that runs through 2036, and for those 7 schools to challenge that and to get out of that and to move forward. And what does that say for everyone else? Where does that leave Pitt, Wake Forest, and others? Probably to merge with the ACC or find a Memphis or Tulane or other schools and to form a new conference. That could be the answer as well. All right, folks, again, we just wanted to hit on this breaking news today concerning the National Labor Relations Board and its complaint filed against USC, the Pac-12, and the NCAA. And if you have missed the good portion of this video, this live stream, certainly check out what you missed. I had some rather pointed comments off the top. All right, everyone. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Don't know when we'll be live next. We do have the rest of our program ranking series to unveil, and we are way behind on all sorts of content initiatives. Of course, May is Great Debate Month here at the Voice of College Football. So serve up your great debate, and we will jump on that. We have Ohio State, Michigan 2016, and all those controversial plays that lined up, as well as Clemson, Ohio State, the 2019 college football playoff game. We were going to get together and watch that one as well. So get your YouTube membership. What you want to do is go to the front page of our channel here, hit the join button, and to make it fair, to make it equitable, keep in mind that the Patreon membership and the YouTube membership are one and the same. They afford you all the same benefits across the board. So you don't have to make a decision there. And because of copyright issues, that's one of the reasons why we have that available. That's one of the great measures of what we do here. And of course, if you understand YouTube and understand the world in which we live, it is best that we separate ourselves from YouTube as best as possible. And that's not the case right now. So we are working toward doing that because we will be in a much better position going forward, separating ourselves from this platform. We'll be here. This will be a destination where you can always find us, hopefully, but separating and not being reliant on YouTube, of course. All right, enough of that. We will see everyone soon here at the Voice of College Football again. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football, and we will see you all very soon.